So, welcome to topic 1.2. We are talking now about the elements of life. If you look, I have a periodic table here that looks a little funky. You can probably tell because all the atoms on here are carbon. Almost all of them. Anyways, we still have some hydrogen, have some nitrogen and oxygen over here, some fluorine, and some of these other gases down here. But in general, we just have carbon. This is the most important element when it comes to organic chemistry, when it comes to biology, when it comes to what makes up all of us and everything we eat and everything we excrete. So, if you'll think back to our caterpillars, which are feeding on this food, they're essentially what they're doing is they're taking this carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, other trace elements, they're converting them into biomass, right? A bunch of biomolecules coming together inside their bodies, and they're losing quite a bit of it as CO2 and waste, right? Other waste products. But this is all part of our matter cycle, and this is essentially how this thing is going to grow, eventually pupate, and end up as a it's using all that energy that it's storing from this food in order to catalyze these processes, which will end up with having this beautiful painted lady butterfly that we want to have. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about the four biomolecules. You've probably heard of these freshman year. First one being carbohydrates. These are sugars, things like that, things that give us energy. For the purposes of this first video, the only thing I really want you to know is what's in it. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. I'd also like you to know that carbon and oxygen are somewhat proportional in the sense that we have, typically in a sugar molecule, we have approximately the same amount of carbons as we do oxygens. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule, but it's going to be a general rule that's somewhat, it's similar throughout all of organic chemistry. You'll have approximately the same amount of carbons as you do oxygens in carbohydrate molecules, so something to keep in mind. Proteins. These, of course, are our nice growth and repair molecules. You'll find them in your muscles, and the muscles is the animal tissues you eat. Proteins have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. We will go into great detail later about proteins. So for now, the knowledge I want you to take with you is the elements that are contained inside of proteins. And you will always find carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. There's other molecules you might find in some specific proteins, but these are the general elements that you will find in all proteins. Nucleic acids. Of course, you've heard about DNA, RNA, ATP, maybe even GTP. There's many different types of nucleic acids or bases for nucleic acids, as we're going to find later on. I'll talk in depth about nucleic acids in the final video of Chemistry and Life. But for the purposes of this video, all you need to know is that they contain carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. That is what these are going to contain. We'll talk more about the genetic code and the bases contained in these nucleic acids, different types of nucleic acids. Later on, for now, be able to identify it based on the elements inside of it. Last one, lipids. Again, you're probably seeing a theme at this point. Everything has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Carbon and hydrogen make up the backbone of pretty much everything, and oxygen allows for some sort of reactivity, which everything needs. Lipids also sometimes have phosphate. If you remember our pal, a phospholipid, which makes up cell membranes over here. So it's two legs, it's water-loving head, water-fearing tails. This is a phospholipid. So sometimes these are going to have phosphorus in them, something to keep in mind, but in general, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, these are fats. Okay, so what I'd like you to do now is go ahead and pause the video and number on your paper somewhere 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, what I'd like you to do is take a look at these structures they have on the screen right here, keeping in mind that anytime you see a point similar to this right here, that is going to have a carbon molecule right there, populated with some hydrogens that you might not be able to see, but each point like that has a carbon, so keep that in mind because you might see those in some of these pictures here. Because carbon is so ubiquitous. It is in every molecule in such large amounts that it becomes too much for somebody to put the carbon in everywhere like they have in this molecule. So what I'd like you to do is keep in mind the number of carbons you have in all of these and the types of elements you have in all these. And I would like you to, on 1 through 4, name the biomolecule that you think that this structure represents. So go ahead and pause the video and take some time, think about it, think about what each of these has and in what proportion, specifically for carbohydrates, and tell me what each of these are, what biomolecule each of these are. Go. Okay, if you are back, you should have something like this. Number 1 is a carb, a carbohydrate. Carbohydrate monomer. This is actually glucose. It's actually glucose right here. So you'll notice it has carbon, it has hydrogen, and it has oxygen. You also notice that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 oxygens and 1. I'll put a square on this carbons. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons as well. So you can kind of see that proportion that we talked about over here. C6H12O6. The H's are coming off of some of these carbons that are unlabeled here. Okay, let's look over here at this next one. What did you put for this one? Put lipid. You're correct. Obviously, it's very high in carbon. Right? This is a long hydrocarbon chain. A lot of hydrogens, not a lot of oxygen in those. Not a lot of oxygen. So go ahead and, if you want to, count how many carbons are in this. Put that number here. Count how many hydrogens are in that lipid. Put it here. Count how many oxygens are in this monomer of the lipid. And put it in this box right here. So come up with a chemical formula for this thing and see how it differs from that carbohydrate formula. Okay, let's move on. This one over here is a nucleic acid. Nucleic acid. Oops. You'll notice that this nucleic acid has carbon in each of these spots here. Of course, every biomolecule has carbon. Carbons all around here. So there's plenty of carbons in here. It has oxygen, has hydrogen, also has some nitrogen, and it also has phosphorus. So it has CHONP. It checks all the boxes. This is a nucleic acid. This is a nucleic acid. Okay, so let's move on here to this last one. Notice you have carbons, you have hydrogens, you have oxygens, and you have nitrogens. Well, that fits most closely to a protein. So this is a protein. It is a protein monomer, which is, you might remember this, amino acid. Right, this is a protein. This monomer here would be called a nucleic, or a nucleotide. Nucleotide. This would be called a monosaccharide. Those are some terms that we're going to be. We'll go over this more in depth later in the next video, but doesn't hurt to preview it a little bit because this is stuff you've already learned. But I'm going to leave it here for the video. 1 is carbohydrate, 2 is lipid, 3 is nucleic acid, 4 is protein. Make sure you know this. What elements are in each of these? Because there might be a quiz on it. So, we'll see you in the next video. Thank you for listening.